an old woman, or maybe you could call her a crone, or perhaps it would be even more accurate to call her an old witch, met the devil walking on the road, and they got into an argument about who was the more adept or superior, if you really want to bring it down to that. So the old woman said, "Actions speak louder than words. Let's go into town." So they headed off towards town. And when they came to the town square, the first stallholder they met was a butcher. And as they came up to the stall, a man came along to buy some meat. Well, as the butcher was weighing up the meat, the buyer said, "Your scales are inaccurate. You're trying to dupe me." The butcher said, "I'm a God-fearing man. Are you accusing me of being dishonest?" Well, they got into a very serious argument, and there was the devil standing by, egging them on for all he was worth. Until finally, the butcher couldn't stand it anymore. He took his cleaver and he killed the meat buyer. Well, of course, it was only a few minutes before the butcher was hauled away to meet his fate. And the devil said, you see what I can do? I effectively killed one man and broke the soul of another one." "Oh," said the old woman, "well, make yourself invisible." Well, of course, the devil didn't have any problem doing that. Poof, he wasn't to be seen for the moment, and the old woman went further into town, and she walked into the shop of a cloth merchant. And she went up to the counter, and looking very woe-begone, she said to the cloth merchant, "Oh, I'm such a sad old woman. My son is a ne'er-do-well, and he's taken another man's wife as his mistress, and he forces me to buy her gifts that he has to take to her every time he goes to visit with her, and if I don't do that, he beats me and threatens me to be thrown out of the house." "Oh," said the merchant, touching himself on the chest, saying, "God is supreme, and may you see retribution in your lifetime." So he brings out a very fine piece of Aleppo cloth, and the old woman takes this and purchases and leaves the store with the invisible devil in tow, of course. And she heads straight for the cloth merchant's house. And she knocks on the door, and cloth merchant's wife answers the door. And the old woman says, "Oh, I'm so very far from home, and it's almost the time for prayer. Would you give me a place where I can say my prayers?" So the wife of the cloth merchant invited the old woman in, gave her a little prayer mat, and took her up to their bedroom and left her in the privacy to say her prayers. Well, the old woman placed the cloth on the bed, and then she left. Well, of course, the merchant came home and went to his chamber to have his afternoon sleep. And there on the bed was a piece of cloth that he immediately recognized as having been sold to the old woman whose son had another woman's as his mistress. So, of course, the cloth merchant immediately went down to the kitchen where his dear, unsuspecting and innocent wife was cooking his dinner. He beat her thoroughly and sent her back to her mother and father's house. So, of course, the devil was quite impressed with this. But the old woman said, "No, not finished yet." So, the old woman went back to the cloth merchant's store. And there he was, a very dejected fellow, behind the counter. And she said, "Oh, something terrible has happened. That piece of cloth I bought from you yesterday, I found a place to say my prayers, and I left the piece of cloth there, and I can't find my way back to the house because I wouldn't recognize it again." So the cloth merchant said, "That was my house that you found your way to." And he went to the back of the store and brought out the piece of cloth. "Oh," she said, "thank you, thank you, thank you." She took her piece of cloth and left. Immediately, the cloth merchant closed up his store, went straight off to the parents of his wife, embracing her and apologizing abjectly and lovingly, took her back to their home. "Ah," said the devil, "you are indeed more adept and superior to me." What's the deep meaning of this story? What is it that the old witch and the devil represent in this story? Looking now at our own experiences in this place that we find ourselves, the laws of life. What's the deep meaning of this story for us?
The devil makes me think of the world political arena.
Okay. Uh-huh. Right. Right. What is it we find working in our life now? The old crone and the devil. What is it that the devil represents in life? I don't know. Yes, you can say. But if that's the case, then what does the old crone represent for us?
Don't be too quick to judge. Don't be too quick to judge.
Right, yes. If it bring down to a personal level, yes.
She rectified the situation she had created.
Uh-huh.
Which was a totally different energy to creating chaos and
All right. Mm-hmm.
bringing it back
Mhm.
into compassion.
For this we have to look at our own story, where we were and where we are.
This comes down to mind and spirit.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What does a witch, an old crone, represent for most of us in most of the stories that we hear?
Like magic, like doing change, stirring, yeah.
The horrible old hideous thing that would steal the
Yes.
children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right.
Because she kind of showed the devil that she can do like him, destroy, if she's able to put it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
In between of the match and realize
That's right.
a lot about himself.
And the devil in us, what do we immediately think of when we imagine the devil?
Like evil. Like,
Evil,
yeah.
destruction.
Destruction.
Right.
That's the way it's perceived to us.
That's the way it's perceived for us. That's the way we think of it, isn't it? So I wonder what's happening here with these stories of the last days. What is it that it's bringing to our notice? What is it that we're becoming aware of?
A change in consciousness.
The change in consciousness, yes. More to come.